Welcome, everybody. I'll call this meeting to order. It's the regular council of meeting of the Municipality District of Yarmouth for February 22nd, 2023. And I'd just like to thank a whole host of residents for coming out. It's always nice to see the folks from the Municipality District of Yarmouth and other spots potentially come out and enjoy our council meeting. So thanks for attending. We've recessed from 5 to 6, and I'll just call the meeting back to order. Item 5, land acknowledgement. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are on the traditional lands of the Acadia First Nation, part of Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And I'd also like to note that Councillor or Warden John Cunningham sends his regrets as he's ill this evening, and I'll be chairing the meeting. We'll please stand for the playing of O Canada. Thank you. Approval of the agenda, additions and deletions. Any additions to the agenda? Okay, there being none, Councillor Hilton moves. Do we have a seconder for the agenda circulated? Councillor Allen. So we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Thanks so much. Item 8 is declarations of any conflict of interest, and I guess I'll start there. I'll declare a conflict on item, it's item 10.1, and the reason being is my employment crosses over with the province, so I'm not able to be present for that conversation. Any additional people looking to declare conflict? Councillor Hilton.
As a nurse for NSHA, I too will declare conflict on item 10.1.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hilton. Any additional? Okay, and just as a matter of sort of running the meeting, look for a motion to have a replacement chair for that session, given that Warden Cunningham's not here, and I'll have to vacate the chair for that item. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, in light of the fact that you will be excusing yourself, I'd like to make a motion that Councillor Patty Durkee assume the chair for item 10.1 under old business.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hilton seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Thanks so much. Item 9, approval of the minutes. Have somebody to approve the minutes? Councillor Hilton?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented in the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hilton. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Durkee seconds. Any discussion concerning that? Councillor Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I did notice, however, just one omission. I see that I had sent regrets to one of the emergency meetings, but I think you were probably present. I see you made a motion, but it doesn't have you listed as being in attendance.
Okay. Yeah.
So maybe we could just make sure that it's shown that you're there, since you're making a motion.
It's always a good idea. So staff, just note that. We can move the motion as amended, if it's all okay with the mover and seconder? Yes, Madam CEO.
So what we do, what our normal practice is when the meeting was called to order, the deputy warden wasn't in attendance, but we do note that he did join the meeting at
Oh, okay.
1:27. So that's been our practice, but we can change that and clarify that if that's
I'm
council's
sorry, I
wishes.
missed that part, so, yeah.
Okay, there you go, so they are correct. Okay. So any additional comment about the motion, discussion? Okay, there being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, we've got item 10, old business, community requests for Councillor Cushing, and I'll ask that Councillor Patty Durkee assume the chair.
This feels very weird. Councillor Cushing, I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding the letter that was sent to us, I just want to make sure that we brought it to council for discussion and whatnot. And the letter is asking the municipality for something that we have no jurisdiction over. It's a provincial health problem, and we know that our Nova Scotia Health is in need of a major reconstruction, or definitely needs help. So I just wanted to bring that forward. So thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Cushing. Any comments? Councillor Herbert.
You got the mic thing figured out
That's
there?
one button.
Thank you, Madam Chair, is that what?
Yeah.
Chairperson? Thanks. I do appreciate the presentation that we received at our Committee of the Whole, and I thank the presenter and for the public. And I would agree that we don't have jurisdiction over anything or any rationale or right to tell the provincial government what to do. But I feel like let me do this. I would make the motion that we thank the provincial government for the listening tour that they did with us and encourage them to use and investigate any option in addressing the issues in healthcare. There. yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Herbert. Do I have anybody seconding that motion? Councillor Daniel Allen. Any discussion on that motion? Councillor Herbert. Oh,
I should have left it
Councillor
on.
Herbert.
And I think that we all know that healthcare is, in trouble. And, I think that anything that, the provincial government can do, to kind of fix things up and, move things forward, and, by us sending a letter just thanking them and, hoping that they can look at everything that will, I feel like we as municipal council, we don't have any influence, and we can't really do anything about it, but just, knowing that healthcare is a huge issue for Nova Scotia, so.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Any other comments at this time? Okay, thank you. Questions being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you. Done.
Thank you, Councillor Durkee. Thank you, Council. So item 11, new business, 11.1, recommendations from the Committee of the Whole. And the first item is the Yarmouth Hospital Foundation Annual We Care Radiothon. Would like to speak to that item. Councillor Hilton.
As per the discussion at Committee of the Whole, I'd like to make a motion that we approve a $500 donation or sponsorship, to the Yarmouth Hospital Foundation Annual We Care Radiothon through the 2023-2024 Community Grants Fund.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hilton. A seconder? Councillor Durkee seconds. And just for everybody in the audience, these are items that were discussed at Committee of the Whole and really just being ratified at this point, so. Yeah, pardon me? They were here. Oh, yes. Right on. Okay, so we've got a mover and a seconder on the motion. Any additional discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Council. 11.1.2, request for decision, Cape Fourcheux Lookoff. Oh. Councillor Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We know how important Cape Fourcheux is to our tourism industry and to all residents of Yarmouth County. So I'm going to make a motion that we contribute the additional cost of $320,000 for the Cape Fourcheux Lookoff project, that we supplement it from money from the capital reserve funds.
Thank you, Councillor Durkee. We have a mover. We have a seconder and Councillor Warren Cushing. Any additional conversation on the motion? Councillor Cushing.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. As Councillor Durkee mentioned, Cape Fourcheux project is a very important project for not only for the municipality of Yarmouth, but Yarmouth County as a whole and beyond. It's good to see that we are moving forward with different projects down there, and the recent project by the Department of Highways was very welcoming news to what they've done for a rock wall along that stretch of road. So, yes, there's many more improvements that are needed at Cape Fourcheux Lake Station itself, but along that Highway 304. So, I just want to say it's a great project, and let's continue on moving forward to attract more visitors to our Cape Fourcheux facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Question is, Cape Fourcheux's, iconic piece of Modi, and the trip down there is beautiful, and everybody enjoys it, both locals and people that come from away. It's, a major attraction, so great news. So all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Council. 11.1.3, March regular council date. Somebody want to speak to that? Councillor Hilbert.
I'd like to make a motion that the Municipality District of Yarmouth hold their March regular council meeting on Monday, March 20th, 2023 at 6 p.m.
So we have a mover. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Allen seconds the motion. Any additional conversation? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Council. 11.1.4, request for decision, administration building debt retirement. Do we have a person that wants to speak to this? Councillor? Councillor Hilbert.
I'll make a motion that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth make a payment of $1.6 million retiring the debt on the administration building to be funded by the operating reserve. And whereas on October the 24th, 2023, $1.6 million will be outstanding to satisfy the current debenture on the administration building at 932 Highway 1, Hebron, Nova Scotia. And whereas interest rates for the new debenture can be expected to be significantly higher than the most recent rate of 5.084 given the Bank of Canada's rate increases. And whereas the interest rates being paid on Modi's accounts is less than the Bank of Canada lending rates, and whereas the municipality has several future capital projects which it will it would like to complete, and that would require debt. Therefore, be it resolved that on October 24, 2023, the municipality of the District of Yarmouth make a balloon payment of $1.6 million funded from the operating reserve to retire the debt on the administration building.
Thank you, Councillor Hurlbert. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hilton seconds the motion. Any additional conversation about the motion on the floor? Question being called for. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 11.1.5, request for decision 2023 tax sale. Councillor Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion that council set opening bid at $8,200 on AAN 8480559 for the 2023 tax sale, and council call for tenders on all unsold properties during the April 12th, 2023 tax sale.
Thank you, Councillor Durkee, and I see that Councillor Nick Hilton seconds the motion. Any additional conversation about the motion on the floor? Question being called for. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Council. We're going so fast, I've got to scroll down. 11.1.6. Thank you to Yarmouth Ground Search and Rescue, which we all know do fantastic work in the municipality of Yarmouth. So, Councillor Sherry Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth send a thank you letter to Yarmouth Ground Search and Rescue, thanking them for the work recently assisted within the municipality.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And we've got a seconder in Councillor Patty Durkee. Any additional conversation about the motion on the floor? Councillor Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, yes, want to reiterate that Ground Search and Rescue did a great job. They actually had come out to sandbag around a septic system to prevent the water that was flooding Allen Lake from getting into that septic system. So it's greatly appreciated that the job that they did, and also our Remo it was wonderful in helping this family save their home.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Durkee. So I have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. 11.1.7, draft low-income exemption policy, L-068-09. Somebody would like to speak to that item? Councillor Hilton.
Just through you to the CAO, were you just looking for, is it first reading or approval, final approval?
Fine.
Yeah, so it's a policy, and you discussed it at your January Committee of the Whole meeting, and so we had council immediately following that, so you had your 7 days' notice later in the month for this to be considered for approval tonight.
So we'll make a motion for approval of the low-income tax exemption policy L-068-09.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hilton. We've got a seconder and Councillor Allen. Any additional conversation? Question being called for. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Council. And we're on to 11.2, second reading for dog bylaw D-048-22, and just for clarification, this is the final reading, so it will become, we'll adopt it with the motion here. Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll make a final motion to accept or approve the dog bylaw D-048-22.
Thank you. We have a seconder? Councillor Durkee seconds the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Second reading for the repeal of the Municipal Emergency Management Bylaw R-842-22. We have a mover for that motion? Councillor Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion that we approve the repeal of the municipal emergency management bylaw R-842-22.
Thank you, Councillor Herbert. We've got a seconder and Councillor Lauren question. Any additional conversation? Question being called for. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Council. 11.4, second reading for solid waste resource collection and disposal bylaw S-088-22. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the second reading of the solid waste resource collection and disposal bylaw S-088-22.
Very good. We have a mover. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Cushion seconds the motion. Any additional conversation? Question being called for. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thanks again. 11.5, applications under policy L-068-09. This is for ratification. We've talked about this as a low-income exemption. Somebody want to speak to the issue?
So I'm not sure the proper, do we just say we approve the ratification? Move to ratify under policy L-068-09 AAN 1206524. And do we need two separate ones? We can do them together? Okay. AAN 552453.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Herbert. We've got a seconder and Councillor Daniel Allen. Any additional conversation about the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Thanks again, Council. 11.6, process for emergency actions in the municipality district of Yarmouth. And Councillor Herbert, you wanted to speak to this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We recently went through a emergency management training session all day with some of our partners, and I feel like we have a good handle on what we do once we're in that position. But through you to Madam CAO, and I'm not sure if we need to make a motion or somehow just so that we as councillors and the public are clear as to how we get to that point of we know there's something and we know what we need to do once all of those things have come into play, but what gets us to that point? And I don't know how we go about that, what we need to do, if it's an education campaign, if it's just you speaking to it. Just, for me, some clarification. I feel like we know, like I said, we know what we need to do once we're there, but how do we get there, right?
Okay, thank you. Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if a councillor receives a call from a resident who feels like their own situation is emergent, you can always refer them to an agency that might be the responding agency. I don't know why anybody would call you if their house is on fire, but it's an easy example. If their house is on fire, you refer them to 911 kind of thing. But if it's similar to what happened in January and, there's a lot of water coming and we know that everybody is struggling to manage, we know that all public infrastructure is struggling, but you get a call from a resident, it's a good idea to call the warden and the CAO and say, look, I'm hearing from a resident. Is anybody else hearing from a resident? Because technically, our emergency management organization only gets active through a motion of council. So we have to have a dialogue kind of on the team side of things and figure out what is going on. If a resident sees one of our pieces of infrastructure malfunctioning, like let's say there's something coming out of one of our pumping stations for our wastewater management, we're in the process now of creating an arrangement with Digby Dispatch, and we'll have a posted emergency after hours number. So during office hours, if anybody sees an emergency on that side of things, then they can call the office, or if they happen to call the counselor, then you call the office kind of thing. So there's two different types of emergent situations. There could be something significant that would trigger our emergency management operations, which is essentially something that affects a geographic area or a particular population of people, or there could be something wrong with one of our pieces of assets. So there's two different things there. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Thank you, Madam CEO. That's useful and again, we learn from every situation as it emerges, so excellent, thank you. Any additional comment on that item? Councilor Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just for clarification, so you're working with Digby Dispatch now. So until that's set up, what would be protocol if something was going on and someone, it's interesting because I had a question asked to me. It wasn't one of our residents, it was a resident in Argyle that had an issue, but they had a number. And he said, well, do you guys, who would you recommend I call? And I said, well, there should be a number. And he said there was. And then I got to thinking, well, I don't know what our number is, and I should know this. And so right at the current time, we have no number to call in case of that?
We actually have somebody who checks our voicemail during the weekend. So if
Okay.
somebody calls and reports an emergency, we've got somebody who checks in the voicemail over the weekend, which is not ideal. So that's why we're going with an arrangement with Digby Dispatch, so that when it happens, on the back end, we will provide Digby Dispatch with a telephone number that they call on our staff level if they receive a resident or somebody calling saying they observe an emergency.
Okay. Any idea how long that'll take to set up?
It's just probably another week or so. Yep, I know the amount, it's affordable, and yep, it'll be no
And-
problem.
And we'll make sure that that is somewhere on our webpage. so
Our
that
website,
residents-
social media,
Yep.
we'll probably post it as after hours on the pumping stations, but after hours, not during regular business hours. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam CEO, and thank you, Council, for bringing that to the table. It's excellent. Okay, 11.7, item 11.7, the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities update. Councilor Durkee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to let everybody know that I attended the meeting on January 26th, because I don't believe I've really discussed that with you. And the changes put forth by the NSFM board were approved, and they'll be going through the process soon to start informing people how things are going to work. So, for example, the committees are going to be set up that will be the advisory committees, and they will be looking for people who have, a letter will go out asking for people who would be interested in the different committees that are set up. They're also going to be asking there'll be a survey coming out asking you if you feel that the umbrella group for these committees, if you feel those are the correct terms. So, for example, one of the committee's title was, climate change. So anything that fell under climate change, a call would go out, for example, if they needed help, to this committee, and the committee would discuss it and provide feedback if we were having issues on a certain thing, or if everybody across the province were having issues. And then it would become an area that committee in particular would be working on. So what I really needed to let you know is there will be a couple of surveys coming out asking for your opinions on how some of these committees are going to be set up. The other thing I wanted to remind you of is the code of conduct is being studied now in terms of possible sanctions for breach of code of conduct, and they've been holding workshops on both online and in person, and there are still some continuing letters have gone out where you could sign up for one of those workshops, and if you haven't done that, I would highly recommend that you provide your input into the code of conduct sanctions in particular. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Durkee, for the update, and thank you for serving on the NSFM. It's helpful, thank you, useful. Item 12, correspondence, 12.1 for action, 12.1.1 ferry service economic impact, and perhaps I can direct this to our CEO, Victoria Brooks, for an update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So through you, Mr. Chair, to Council, I wanted to make Council aware that I received correspondence from the Deputy Minister of Public Works and Transportation outlining the approach that the province plans to take when they go out to hire a consultant to do the economic impact assessment on the US-Canada ferry that arrives in Yarmouth. And so I had a conversation with a number of my CAO colleagues, and apparently this offer to comment on the scope of that body of work went out quite broadly in southwest Nova Scotia to all the municipalities. So there are some municipalities that have responded individually, and then there are some that are willing to respond kind of as a group. And Yarmouth and Acadian Shores Tourism Association has also responded. So I've read the letter, and I agree with what Deputy Minister Hackett has described as in scope. There are points made by YASTA around items that were not in the scope that I would recommend council echoes. So pieces around the average spend and the yield of visitors when they arrive in Nova Scotia from other parts of Canada and the US, maybe even Mexico. They might drive all the way through the States and come to Canada that way. But then I also wanted just a little bit of feedback from council in terms of if there was anything else you thought should be recommended to be included in the scope. We've got the opportunity to comment, and I just want to take every advantage to think about this asset for Nova Scotia and Canada in as many ways as possible.
So I guess that sets up the question, are there any additional comments from council? So Councillor Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess being Vice Chair of the Board of Yarmouth and Acadian Shores, I appreciate that the CAOs across the province, just not just here, I think some across the province are writing in support of the Yarmouth to Maine ferry. This is a Nova Scotia ferry, it's not a Yarmouth ferry. And having just had a meeting yesterday, as a matter of fact, our numbers are amazing. That, you know, I know there were 35,000 people that used the ferry, and considering that we were still under some COVID restrictions, that was great. And if you look at the percentages, the minutes will be forward to you, of people who have come here, it's amazing how our numbers are almost at 2018, which is before we lost the ferry service. So I think we're 2% below that. So it's just really important that this continues, and I feel that the people in other parts of the province are starting to become more aware of thinking about, or we're trying to make them more aware of thinking about where people came from, so that they can actually support the service that we are providing from Yarmouth. But again, I can't reiterate enough that this is a Nova Scotia ferry, this is not a Yarmouth ferry, and I would appreciate that if everybody used that terminology so that the rest of the province can have a better understanding that it's, and voters have a better understanding that the government isn't just putting money into an asset that's just for Yarmouth. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Durkee. Any additional comments from council? Councillor Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I, wholeheartedly agree with the letter that YASTA has put forward, and I'm not sure if we can be any more thorough than the document that they have put forward. But I would agree, it is an international ferry crossing, and we need to think of it as such. And and it does support more than just the residents of Yarmouth. So I think what YASTA has outlined, for me, like I said, I don't think we could say anything more than what they have, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hurlbert. And the letter is yet to be sent off, just for clarification.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. So, any additional comments from council? Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a process question, like YASTA's response, is that shared with all the people that were given this original letter? I just feel like as we hold the ferry here, and it is Nova Scotia Ferry, that, the good news stories and the good points that we might have more information to support that cause, and sharing our response with everyone might have some benefit.
So through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor
Certainly.
Hilton, I do know that all of the 11 municipalities in Digby, Yarmouth, and Shelburne counties have it. I can't speak to if it went more broadly in Nova Scotia, but I will check with the Executive Director of YASTA and just either, encourage YASTA to do that, or if YASTA wants us to, we can. whatever, we can do, it's a public letter, so we can approach it either way. I do think you raise a valid point. Yasta is an incredible destination tourism marketing association, and the metrics that they describe in their response are really important metrics. They go far deeper than just how many people came or went on the ferry.
Thanks.
Thank you, Madam CEO.
Just a follow-up statement.
Oh,
to
certainly,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, just, we know that when the premier talks, everyone hears, so I think it's important that we voice, when we can voice, we voice the positives to it. And we know that the Can Arrive app caused some of the issues, and we still had 35,000 people, so I look forward to seeing what the numbers are this year, and you can't judge rebound on 1 year, so, yeah, we need to share those good points with as many people as we can.
Thank you, Councillor Holton. And we all know that's an important piece of infrastructure because, it's our highway to the USA for Nova Scotia, and it's obviously really important historically and economically for our area. Having said that, I did have a thought to contribute potentially. So the greenhouse gas emissions issue is obviously big. We're working as a province to reduce it. I guess people globally are working to try to reduce the footprint. Having said that, that is potentially an expensive proposition. Obviously alternative energy is probably more expensive than the traditional, gas, oil production of electricity, but we're going to be faced with some stark choices moving forward in terms of cost and emissions trade-offs. So having said that, it may be useful. I'm not certain because I obviously haven't done the research. That's not my role as a councillor to do all that work. But we might want to suggest to Yasta that they look at that issue. Can we reduce the carbon footprint that Nova Scotia produces, trucking all those goods and services and all those cars via, obviously the cars are going much, much further on land, and that there may be some benefit to our greenhouse gas emission footprint in Nova Scotia and the USA by actually having that service and having the trucks on the ferry and having the cars on the ferry as opposed to all of them driving independently. So I think generally ferries are lower emissions overall, but that I can't be certain. Madam CEO.
Not elected.
You're not a councillor, no.
I know that the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and I even think the United Nations, have found a way to monetize greenhouse gas emissions. So if for every unit you reduce a greenhouse gas emission, there's been some way to assign a value to that. So I don't know if we might want to suggest to the province that they take a look at the trade-off, right? So if there was no ferry service, there would be a loss to industry in Nova Scotia. In order to replace that industry by having people travel by vehicle into Nova Scotia, there's likely some kind of a comparator on greenhouse gas emissions. And so you place a value on that in terms of your harm to the environment to get that equivalent amount of economic activity all here independently versus coming in on a piece of public transportation. So, I mean, we could put it in there for food for thought. I think the province is probably better positioned to take a peek at that maybe than Yasta on their own.
Okay, that's a good suggestion. Thank you, Madam CEO. So what I'm hearing is that we'd be looking for a motion to support Yasta's letter, and so I'm looking.
Support Yasta's letter or write your own?
I think maybe they're two independent issues.
I think if I heard correctly, we'd be writing our own, but we would signify support for Yasta's
Okay.
correspondence in ours, if I heard correctly.
Yeah. Thank you. And maybe we'll have a seconder on the motion. Second by Councillor Allen. Councillor Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm thinking that if Yasta's letter went to the 11 municipalities around our area, that maybe it wouldn't hurt to make that suggestion that they send it to the other municipalities to see the impact that it's had.
Okay, yeah. What I'm going to suggest is maybe we...
Along with that?
Yeah, we table that just for the time being, and then maybe introduce
I
it in a
can make that
separate
a
motion.
separate motion.
Yeah,
Sure,
yeah,
that's
that
fine.
may make it easier. Yeah, it's a good idea, though, for sure. I guess the other issue is, are we going to suggest that, or we could do this by a separate motion, that greenhouse gas emission piece be included in the letter? That's the intention of the motion? Okay, perfect. Any additional conversation on the motion? Question being called for. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Council. Councillor Durkee.
I don't know that we need a motion for this, or just that we make a recommendation to YASTA that they share their letter with the other municipalities in the province.
Yeah.
Do you want it as a motion?
Sure,
We
yeah.
can, I'll make that a motion then.
And we've got a second, Councillor Hilton. Any additional conversation on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Council. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to find my cursor. There we go. So, 12.1.2, Yarmouth International Airport Corporation, brief to mayor and wardens. So I'll look to our CAO to update us on that item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a number of years ago, I think it was right before the pandemic, the 3 municipal councils who own the Yarmouth International Airport Corporation provided that board with a mandate to right-size the airport for today's economic realities. And so what you have before you in your package is an update from the acting general manager at the airport in terms of what's been done to speak to that mandate over the course of a couple of years. And I think the warden wanted it under correspondence for action this evening, likely because he is thinking that we would respond, thanking the board, the Yarmouth International Airport Corporation Board, for the work that they're doing on the right-sizing mandate.
Thank you, Madam CEO. Councillor Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make that a motion that we send a letter to the International Airport Corps to say thank you for the work that's being done. And as well, I have to say I'm really excited and pleased with the comments from Greg Shea on some of the initiatives that he's working on in making improvements to our airport. Interestingly enough, it's set in the 70s, which is actually really cool, and I would rather not change that because I think people appreciate that for what it is, but there are some things like the Pilot's Lounge that will make it more attractive for people from away to visit. And I think we have a lot of activities coming up in the near future, which, may provide a great source, because we only have the ferry at the moment, for transportation for people to get here, knowing that they have the option, because it is an international airport, that it can be used.
Thank you, Councillor Durkee. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Allen seconds the motion. Any additional conversation? Councillor Oaten.
Just wondering if it'd be worth including sending that to our 2 partners as well. Yeah, carbon copy our 2 partners.
Fine.
That's
Yeah,
okay with
it's a
you?
good idea. I think we can do that by consensus.
Yeah, and just a couple comments, and I know the airport's not what we all wish it was at this time, and it is straight out of the 70s. I participate in the runway, or volunteer at the runway run every year. They clearly don't run it, but it's a very unique experience to be out there with 200 or 300 people as they run the airport, no, not the airport stretch, but the runway itself underneath or next to all the lights. So one-of-a-kind event, and we have a one-of-a-kind airport, and I look forward to see what Greg Shea and the committee can come up with next.
Thank you, Councillor Hilton. Any additional comments? I'd like to make one, just because the airport is an important piece of infrastructure, and I guess you can't say it too often, the life flights, there are life flights that depart from our airport. So we all know we have an important regional health center, hospital here in Yarmouth, and you often see the helicopters because it's fairly visible from town and the municipality. You see those coming into the hospital, so you know what it's for, right? That they're life flights. But when the winds creep up and the weather becomes really inclement, those rotor aircraft, the helicopters, don't work well in really, really poor conditions. And fixed-wing aircrafts required often to transport people to Halifax. So having an airport can be, you know, a life and death type necessity for the community. So that's really, really important. And additionally, they run a lot of the search and rescue operations when fishermen are in peril and so forth, and others, including our big fire in the municipality, mostly I think in the municipality of Argyle this past year. A lot of the operations were run out of there. So, and about 1,500, I think, ish touches per year. So it's busier than many people think, and it's an asset that's once it's not there, gaining something back like that would be very, very difficult. So I think we have to have all eyes on maintaining the asset and growing it for the community. And so those are some of the reasons it's important, because everybody reasonably asks why the airport. Well, those are some of the top considerations for keeping the asset in the area. So, and again, the 3 units, Argyle, Municipal District of Yarmouth, and the town are partner in the International Airport Corporation, Yarmouth Airport, Yarmouth Area Airport Corporation. Yes, sorry, my apologies. So we have 3 municipal partners funding that. Okay, any additional conversation there? Call for the motion. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you so much, Council. .2.2, sorry, no, my apologies. 12.1.3, letter of support request from the town of Yarmouth. Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the municipality of Yarmouth has received a request from the town of Yarmouth to support their application to the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Fund for improvements to the Lake Milo Boat Club.
What's the wishes of council? Councillor Hilton.
I'll make a motion that we write the town of Yarmouth in support of the Green Initiative funding stream application.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hilton. We have a seconder in Councillor Durkee. Any additional conversation about the motion? Councillor Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the CAO, this talks about Tuesday, the 21st, which was yesterday. So is there a provision that even though we're sending this letter, that we could get it out quickly and it still meets their deadline?
Yep, I indicated to the engineer for the town of Yarmouth that if council was favorable, we would get it turned around in 24 hours, so they'll have it tomorrow.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hurlbert. Any additional conversation? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. There's a couple items here on 12.24 information. There's a Nova Scotia Works response regarding Highway 304 Grove Road maintenance, and then also a letter from the Honourable Francois Philippe Champagne. Any conversation around the Councillor Cushing?
Thank you, Deputy Warden. I'd like to speak on the Public Works Office of the Minister concerning Highway 304 on the Grove Road. As you know, as you are aware, or Council is aware in the audience, Council sent the Department of Highways a letter explaining the dangerous situations along Highway 304, and we certainly have had a response, and it's been referred to the area manager for their review. And just to follow up on that, I think I mentioned it earlier about the rock work that was done along the Cape Shoe area, Highway 304, to protect that road that was deteriorating pretty quick. So it's an excellent job done by the highway. So I think by the sounds of this letter, they are taking notice of the difficulties along Highway 304. Sure, we understand that it all can't be done at once, but at least we're progressing. Thank you for the response.
Absolutely, some positive forward progress, I think, so that's excellent. Any additional comment from those items, those 4 information items? Okay, there being none, we'll go to reports. Item 13, 13.1, the CAO's report. Madam CAO?
So as usual, it's been a busy month. In the report, you have a couple of important things on the highlight reel. So there will be a hearing in this room on May the 10th, and the Utility and Review Board will be holding their public hearing on your submission on the boundary review that we did last calendar year. So that's kind of an important piece. Just for the public, we do want to remind everybody that we are in the intake season for community grant applications, so get it in early. April 15th is the deadline. We're moving ahead quickly with the Mariner Center expansion. I am sitting on the committee that will be evaluating the responses to the request for proposals for the prime design consultant, and we're hoping that that work will start in April. As well as the Planning Advisory Committee received a presentation from Upland Consulting earlier this month that included the draft revisions to the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw, and the PAC and the consultant are now moving into the next phase of public engagement to hear feedback on those draft revisions. Once that wraps up, then a recommendation will come to council from the PAC on what your new framework will look like. The rest of the material in the narrative part is just regular updates on council, the motions of council, and the unaudited financial statements are looking good for this fiscal year that we're about to wrap up.
Thank you, Madam CEO. Councillor Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of other things. Thank you, Madam CAO, for the update. I'm looking forward to the March Committee of the Whole for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion recommendations to Council for the Citizen Rep and Advisory Committee, so that's good, positive work. The other thing, we had received an email today, and it is in the CAO's report about the volunteer recognition, which is coming in April. So if there are any nonprofit groups out there who would like to nominate a volunteer, the process, I am not sure if we're doing a blitz on social media with that. So stay tuned, watch the social media pages to figure out the links and stuff to nominate the volunteer in, worthwhile causes in our community. The Mariner Center expansion, moving along great. I think that was it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holbert. Any additional comment about the CO's report? Okay, I would like to comment just generally. I think the municipality district of Yarmouth really, I think we're moving ahead faster than ever. We've got a fantastic strategic plan. As council and staff, there's a lot of cohesion, and we've really moved things forward. Our population's ticking up a little bit, which is always the right way to go after having declined for a number of years. And we've got a lot of things on the go. The Mariner Center expansion, some active transportation developments in Port Maitland and in Hebron Dayton, and more to come throughout the municipality potentially. And we've got the Cape First Shoe look-off, and many other things that we're actively pursuing as a council. So I think we've really been, as a group, working together in developing a plan over the last couple of years. It's going to take us, move us pretty well into the future. So thanks, Madam CEO, for your report. Oh, yes. Councillor Holbert, you're moving the, yeah.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion that we accept the CAO report as presented.
Very good. We have a seconder. Councillor Cushing seconds. I was so excited about our progress, I forgot to ask for the motion, so there you go. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Council. 13.2, the Warden's Report, and there's a written report from our Warden, John Cunningham, online, so I'll leave it there. Legal entities, so there's a section here where we report out on all the legal entities. So 13.3.1, Mariner Center Management Authority. Anybody would like to comment about what's been going on there? Okay. Regional Solid Waste Authority. Okay. Western Counties Regional Library. Okay. Yarmouth Area Industrial Commission, any update there? Okay. I can do a quick update. Yeah, so the Industrial Commission, there have been some, been a lot of gains there, and we're really focusing on potentially, obviously we own, the Industrial Commission owns the wharves, a number of the wharves downtown, and so we're working on those to potentially put in place a governance system where that's migrated to a different type of governance system. So we've been working very, very hard on that file. I guess so that's really the biggest piece of what we've been doing of late. Madam CEO, any additional comment there on the Industrial Commission? I guess that's really the crux of it. Okay, thank you. Next item, Yarmouth and Acadian Shores Tourism Association. Councillor Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and as I mentioned yesterday, I just attended a meeting, and huge kudos go to Neil and his team for the honestly exceptional job they do in promoting Yarmouth and area, the Yarmouth and Acadian Shores. They have received numerous positive comments from the big events like TMAC and the Curling Canada event that was held. And the latter was an off-season event, so it put heads in beds. When we looked at the numbers recently of all the hotels and the Airbnbs and VRBO, our numbers are way up, which was absolutely fantastic. There's lots of things in the works, and one of the exciting events coming up again is the Nova Scotia Music Week, which will be held in November, and I know that they've already started planning. So nothing but great things. It's a pleasure to attend those meetings.
Thank you, Councillor Durkee. Any additional conversation on that item? Okay, thank you. The next item is 13.3.6, Yarmouth County Solid Waste Park. Comment there? Okay, next item is the Yarmouth International Airport Corporation. Anything additional to add? That was an item we talked about pretty extensively before. Okay. Item 13.3.8, Western Regional Enterprise Network Liaison and Oversight Committee. Any report there? Oh. Councillor Durkee.
Nick's making fun of me. No, I just want to mention Rob Stevenson actually is part of Yarmouth and Acadian Shores organization, and he came in and mentioned that there are some job fairs coming up, one in Barrington and one in Digby, and people are looking for staff. So the Western Wren is a great place if you're looking for a job. They have connectors that will help you. They'll show examples of things that they have done to pair people looking for jobs with businesses. And so if anybody's looking for a job, keep an eye out for those job fairs that are coming up.
Thank you, Councillor Durkee. Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just speaking about rural internet, because the Western Wren is running that through Develop Nova Scotia, I believe, that they sent us one email, and it kind of passed by it at first, but it's the satellite internet rebate program, and that's for anyone that doesn't have high-speed internet to this point, or access to it, and high-speed internet to this point. And there is a a website you can go to see if you qualify. But it is a $1,000 rebate, and if you've put in something in Starlink, I believe is the only one that qualifies to this point, but if you put it in, even previous to when they made the rebate open to the public, if you still have no access, you can get $1,000 back. And I've been promoting that to the residents in my community that are still in those blackout areas, and I know that 3 or 4 of them have got the rebate back, so $1,000 is a lot of money, especially when they had to put that up to get high-speed internet, where maybe the rest of us do not, or have not.
Thank you, Councillor Hilton. An important point and opportunity for select people that are having trouble getting their internet service boosted. Okay. We've got advisory. So this is 13.4. This is all the advisory committees, and the first one's the audit committee, and I can maybe speak to that just briefly. The audit committee is really active during the budget season, and that's upcoming, in post-budget season certainly, and our audited financial statements come forward from the committee to council for approval. So that activity, that audit committee will certainly become more active as the budget season progresses and we finalize our budget and move to present our audited financial statements to council. So 13.4.2 Accessibility Advisory Committee, any comment there? Councillor Hurlbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Accessibility Advisory Committee met after quite a lengthy gap in meetings, only because we were waiting, the main thing we were waiting for was the accessibility audits on this building and the Rotary Center. So we talked about that, and the request for the Accessibility Advisory Committee was to send some comments back to Darlene, and we have another meeting scheduled for, I'm just getting my notes here, March the 14th, where we will finalize those and do a review of how we are doing. So we have an action plan, and staff will report back on how we're getting along down that road. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Any additional comment on that item? Okay, we'll move on to, CO Committee. I don't think there's a report there. And 13.4.4 Doctor Recruitment and Retention Committee. Councillor Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've recently attended a meeting of the Doctor Recruitment and Retention Committee, and I just want everybody to know that there's a lengthy name for, it's the Yarmouth Partnership. I'll call it Yarmouth Partnership because it's quite long. There are 4 municipalities that contribute to this partnership. There's the Chamber of Commerce, there is the Hospital Foundation, and private individuals who have contributed to this. In addition, there was a grant request recently put in, and we were awarded $61,000 for retention for doctors, and one of the first events coming up this week is a doctor appreciation night, and they're going to be giving out like 10 different awards to different doctors, so it's really exciting. In terms of recruitment, you know, we have challenges like everybody else, but I have to say the news has been pretty good. First of all, we haven't really lost anybody, and there's no announcements right now of retirements, but we do have people coming, and so there's some good news that's coming with not right away, but there's someone coming in the summer, and then another doctor coming in the fall, and we've had really good success in keeping our residents. So we'll just keep moving forward and celebrate our successes. And, you know, I think that the government is looking at different ways of making things better. But they're not meeting some of the expectations that they had set out, unfortunately, and it's not an overnight fix, but at least we know down here we've got a group of people working really hard to improve the situation.
Thank you for the report. The REMO, which is the Regional Emergency Management Organization Executive Committee. No report? Oh, sorry. Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm the chair of the REMO committee, and we met last month, and we have Shane Strong as our new emergency management coordinator, and every meeting we go to with him is very exciting. He's well prepared and jumps to action when needed. He provided some updates on the extreme cold event that we had a couple weeks ago. Kudos to the town for opening a warming center at the fire hall for that weekend. Good news is they did have a few calls, but no one felt the need to attend. And that was open both nights, or 2 or 3 nights over that weekend. The flooding at Allen's Lake in Councillor Durkee's district, they helped find a quick resolution to that. I believe the Quinnen Fire was the one that's quoted here. They were heavily involved in that one as well. And then they made note of the 911 outage, which I think any resident found a little bit disturbing, that they were kind of left hanging with no, they gave a 1-800 number, I believe, to call, but it was with very little direction. So they are following up on that as well. So we look to kind of hear back from them on what, if that was to happen in the future, what we might be able to do that would be a better solution. They bought their own Starlink internet. They have mobile internet now because they purchased a Starlink unit, and they have a number of other things on the go. And just to speak to, the CRTC had put out some, I think it was, they were limiting the number of mass text messages that people could put out. So it was affecting volunteer firefighters when they were responding to fires. So because of the new legislation, they weren't, and maybe the CAO can speak to this a little bit better, but they've moved to a phone app called I Am Responding that will kind of allow them to create a group and do that. And it's actually going to allow our REMO staff to be better informed. So finding new workarounds, but altogether finding solutions. Thank you.
Thank you for the report. 13.4.6 Heritage Advisory Committee. Report there? Okay, no report there. 13.4.7 Joint Green Energy Committee. No report there. 13.4.8 Joint Police Advisory Committee. Report there. Planning Advisory Committee, 13.4.9, and I'm the chair of the Planning Advisory Committee, and we had a meeting recently, and we had a presentation from Upland, and we reviewed our municipal planning strategy, draft municipal planning strategy and bylaws. So really that oversees development. Those two documents really provide the groundwork for any development moving forward in the municipality district of Yarmouth. So that's going to go for a public consult, and concurrently it will be, we'll have a planning advisory committee consult when they bring it back next month. So in any event, that work's been moving along. It's relatively complicated, but very, very important for growth and development and protection of the environment and all those other pieces in the municipality of Yarmouth. So, Madam CEO, anything to add to that summation? No. Okay, thank you. 13.4.10 Marketing, Promotions, and Levy Advisory Committee. 13.4.11 Yarmouth Recreation Committee. A report there? No, it's been some time, but we'll have an upcoming meeting shortly. And the Yarmouth Recreation Committee's a committee comprised of town volunteers and councillors and staff, and both town and the municipality of District of Yarmouth. We share recreation services among the two units, or between the two units. 13.5 Ad Hoc There's the Fence Arbitration Committee. Ah, we've got a report.
Yeah, good news.
Councillor Hilton.
Good news, no animals have escaped.
Glad to hear that. Thank you, Councillor Hilton. Okay, 13.5.2, Mariner Center Expansion Committee. Anybody want to speak to this? Okay.
Next meeting is at the end of March.
Next meeting is at the end of March, and if you've been watching this unfold, we are moving along, certainly with the Mariner Center expansion, and we're working as 3 units, the municipality of District of Argyle, Town of Yarmouth, and the municipality of Yarmouth, and you're all well aware that we have a fairly substantial federal funding, or had a fairly substantial federal funding announcement some time ago of $15.9 million, and the 3 councils have committed $10 million, and then on top of that, we're looking at some additional fundraising efforts, and I think also $4 million from the province. So that puts together about a $30 million project to this point. So, and again, we're in the planning phases, and we'll looking forward to breaking ground in the near term. As you're well aware, inflationary forces have made things probably a little bit more challenging, but we've got a good group of people in place and moving the project forward. So that's what I can report there. In camera. So that moves us to the in-camera portion of our meeting. Do we have a motion? Councillor Allen, you're moving to go in camera? Okay, we've got a mover, a seconder. Councillor Durkee, I don't know why I looked at Councillor Durkee, but she responded. So I have a mover and seconder. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody.